Well, we'll get started here with everybody is on. Again, I want to thank you for everyone taking time out of their busy schedule this afternoon to take the time to log in, and at least I get the chance to finally meet some of our shareholders and market people, and I appreciate that. Please, I need to have people mute their mics, though. Mr. Trapp, Mr. Orr, and Galaxy, all kinds of folks. I would deeply appreciate it if you mute your mics, please. Thank you. Let me start out. I want to start out by just bringing back in, reviewing last year a little bit, briefly for folks. Last year was a great year for Desert Mountain Energy. We saw an over 600% increase in the stock between March to December. It was fantastic. Very few companies that have that. And as we're going forward, we look forward to more really great growth. We started out by drilling the first 2 wells, and we were successful. Both wildcats. In an industry that normally is not blessed with hitting 2 for 2. We moved on to the 3rd well in December. We drilled it, and we again found what we were after. So it proved up our geologic model for what are the elemental requirements to have commercial helium-3 and helium-4 production. So it's with minimal amounts of CO2, hydrogen, and methane. There's a lot of areas that we could step 28 miles to the south and east from our first 2 wells, and we could have 3,000, 4,000 PSI pressures. And we could have anywhere from 0.5% to 1.25%. But we would be dealing with large amounts of CO2, and which is an additional cost. You have the CO2 sequestration rules to deal with, or we would be having to become the largest basic dry ice manufacturer in the United States. I have no desire to do that. My goal is to be a helium producer. And so with that in mind, our original outline called for drilling into 6 specific geologic areas, all different. Some of them have the same trapping mechanism, but each one had its own unique area. Wells number 1, number 2, both had their own unique. We found that there. We went to number 3. We're going to be going to number 4, and then number 5 and number 6. The reason we had not originally gone with into area number 6 is because it would increase, it's in a known area for hydrogen and helium. And that's one of those things we wanted to put off till later because that's a different type of market to use for helium. And so that's where we wanted to go with that and just put that off. When we drilled well number 3, we went 75 miles away from the first 2, totally stepping out. Not just a slight difference, but basically 2/3 from one side of the basin to the other. And we managed to pull that off greatly. We went in, it proved once again our geologic modeling. We're not looking for 0.5 or 1% in helium. We're looking for a lot greater. And also, since we're drilling in Arizona, water is a commodity. It's a precious resource. And so we chose initially, when I developed these plans, we went in for drilling with an air mist combo. We're not using caustic soda and drill muds and any other kind of a number of chemicals, which slow down the drilling. It also gives you it also can get into different formations. So we went early on with the decision to drill with air mist. So it cuts down on how much water you even need to use. It's a precious commodity. Let's use this very, very wisely. And within the water, if we normally are drilling and we're just dusting, it's called, you don't use anything. If you start running into some areas that have a little water, we add a very little water, and then we use what's called a biofoamer. Those biofoamers meet at least NSF 60 requirements. Some are higher. I purposely have only used the same biofoamer or the type for 2 decades, basically, in my own drilling. I just have always worked to try to protect groundwaters and everything I'm working with in the environment. And that is just the way Robert has always done business. And that's why we're continuing to do that. And when I say, biofoamers, people think, well, how much are you using? What is this? I know a lot of folks, I'm sure, are familiar with the Dawn dishwashing soap commercials of many years back, where they sew the little duck and they're using it to clean the oil off the duck. Well, number one, you can't use that because it's not EPA approved in that format, because it has a food coloring and it has a fragrance. What we use is a whole lot more expensive and a lot higher dollar than that. But even in the first 3 wells, we have yet to use 1 55-gallon drum of foamer in 3 wells. You just don't need to use a lot of it. And by not using a lot of drill muds and other caustic substances, when you drill a well and you get ready to run casing and then cement the casing into place, because you don't have what they call mud cake, and things that prevent you from getting a good cement bond between the steel casing and all the varied rock formations. So when we do a cement job, we're getting a good bond. So we have good well integrity. And that is just so critical. And I think it's a lost art in many ways. People like to use whatever high dollar. I'm sorry, could somebody mute their mic, please? Thank you. And the use of these limited chemicals, as I say, they're bio-friendly, so we don't have to worry about anything. And it makes it easier to end up with a great wellbore that is structurally sound. And as far as everybody, wants to discuss, I'm sure, about what happened with the lawsuit. It's pending litigation. We've in court. We're awaiting a judge's decision on it. Both us and our legal counsel feel very strong about our case. We feel very, very good about it. I would refer folks, if they want to do any kind of other research on it, that they might want to look at a case that came out of the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. last Tuesday in regards to similar matters. And it was, everything was struck down and everything was upheld for the companies. So we feel very good about that going on. But it's still, irrespective of any of that, when we drilled the well number 3, once again, we proved up our model so that going forward to the 4th area, we feel very confident. Now, in that 4th geologic area, we decided to make a decision to move away from state and other governmental properties and leases. And it was by design originally to go on the 4th area. We would be drilling on private property. It was also designed by design. That's the area we are looking at putting our processing and finishing facilities into. And so consequently, it dovetailed in to what we had done on 1, 2, and 3, and then starting here now for the final build out on the area. So we will be doing on the 4th area, we will actually be doing a multi-well package, and we will be announcing the locations of that exactly. They will be fairly close together, and that'll be coming out in very short time frame. And we are still processing the regular permitting process that we have to do with all the other, where we go on the state agency lands and everything. Those type of state agencies and where we're on state land and government properties, those agencies, from the time we do the cultural resources and we go through everything, we have all of the state agencies and governmental agencies involved. It just takes time. It takes 5 to 8 months. So we're working on all of those to continue pushing the peanut forward down the field on that. And we will, I know a lot of folks, I've had some emails, people were wanting to know about, well, what about the reserve analysis, Robert? Well, on wells 1 and 2, we will be coming out with that shortly, in conjunction with the next series of wells. And I think folks will be very happy with those results. We are also progressing on the end user contracts. The only thing I can really comment on, because I am in negotiations with multiple companies, is that all of these folks who are coming in have unanimously stated that they want to supply their own trailers and trucks for moving the final product down the road. This is a great boon for the company. It removes all our liability issues. It removes the additional costs that we would have to incur to move a final product to an end user. Everybody wants to do that on their own so that they can drive through, we can load their trailers in a systematic manner, and they will take them down the road. Oh, hello, could I please twist somebody's arm, whoever just joined us, to mute their phone, please? Thank you. Then as far as the scheduling for the completing the engineering work on both the solar and the helium processing plants, that is progressing. It is expected to go from the time that we have the final design. We pretty much have nailed down the final designs, dependent upon what the next well makeup of the gas is. And we expect from the time that we have the final version of that, it will be 18 to 23 weeks that we would take delivery of the mobile units. The actual site work that we are looking forward to is very minimal, because these are mobile units. We're on basically the sites that we have selected. It's on rock. It's just very minimal prep work for anything. And it's a large area so that everyone can drive through. There's no backing. It reduces liability issues. People drive in, we hook them up. And when we just hook up the next trailer and release it at that point. So it works out very good. The only thing we cannot control, obviously, as we all have had to deal with in the last year, is COVID. Now, if one of these manufacturing companies happens to get hit with something, even though we are going to be using a lot of off-the-shelf parts, it's still, there are a number of things that could come into play. I'm sorry, whoever just joined us, could you mute your phone, please? Hello? Please mute your phone. Thank you. An additional concern that a lot of folks have had is how are we going to be growing as far as staffing? We have already, for long-term growth, we have already addressed that, and we've had discussions with the appropriate people. We basically have arrived at commitments on either side. Everyone that we are going to have selected thus far, they have very specific areas. Although they all have their unique areas, they all have, basically everybody I picked has multi-discipline. So it ensures the company's progress in a manner that is most desirous for all the shareholders. So to review if you look at the slide in front of you, on the first quarter, we will close on the processing facilities property. Where that currently stands is we are having the final title review on that and a phase 2 environmental study. We have 2 other backup areas that we have already completed the phase 1 environmental study. And they're all basically 40-acre units. So it's same size. They're all within 3 miles
sounds really good.
Each other. I'm sorry, whoever just joined us, could you mute your phone, please? Thank you. Then we will be permitting a multiple well package. Again, these wells will be drilled on private property, and just the requirements that come into play for drilling on private property is a whole lot less. It's just much simpler. You don't have to do everything. We will continue our cultural resource reviews on beginning permitting process of wells 7, 8, and 9 beyond. And we'll be finalizing negotiation with the end user contract. In the second quarter, we will drill the second, third well package. We're going to finish doing the flow test on the newest wells. We'll finalize the engineering and order processing facility. Construction be undertaken. The actual construction, on-site construction, will take 7 to 10 days max. It's very simple. And the final permitting for those processing facilities, we've already started that. So it becomes sensor mobile. And what we are not doing, we're not venting a bunch of CO2. We're not venting a lot of things. We'll then in the third quarter, we'll begin the site construction and also begin the construction facilities. And then the fourth quarter, we'll finalize, move in the actual mobile units. We'll get that in. We'll start drilling well number 7 and start delivering product to end users. Some of the things that some folks have brought up is, well, Robert, your pressures aren't as high. No, we don't have as high pressures. As I've already previously stated, if I wanted 3,000 PSI, I can go 28 miles to the southeast and I can be into that. And I will be dealing with a lower level. You might want to compare it to, do you want a low grade gold mine with dealing with a lot of arsenic and lead issues, or do you want a high grade and not deal with that? And that's what our entire process from the start has been, to focus on high grade. And with that, I'm going to take questions, because I know there's a lot of you fine folks have some great questions you'd like to ask.
Hi there, can you hear me okay?
Yes, who's this?
Hi, my name's Rob Powell. I'm a shareholder. Am I allowed to proceed with the question, or is there a line?
Uh-huh.
Well, thank you. So first of all, many thanks for doing today's presentation. It's a great model for other companies. It's much appreciated. I just had a quick question about financing all of this. DMA obviously did a tremendous job, raising some 13 million last year, but I believe it will cost more than this to actually get to first production. What kind of financing avenues are you exploring currently? I'd be very curious to know. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good question. Good to visit with you, Rob. I've only been able to do a few emails with you over the past, so it's nice to have a face and a voice to go with it. Thank you. The financing, basically, the last financing we did, we took advantage of very advantageous time and good timing for the company to get in our financing, our base financing. That carries us through basically a lot of what we're trying to do. Now, as far as further on that, within that financing, we had it set to where if we get to 350, we can accelerate that, and that basically gives us an additional $16 million without any further dilution. And that's one of the goals, to get the price up to that before we need to get to that point, into the third quarter, middle of the third quarter. So it gives us some time to get the pricing up and get to that point. Hopefully that answers part of that question. How about another great question? Hello? Who's got a great question? I got a lot of great minds on here. I know that.
Hi, this is Ulrich Schade. I have a question.
Yes, good afternoon.
Sorry about that. I think that was me. The question I have is, I heard through the grapevine that you are, oh dear. Let me try to fix this.
That isn't you, Ulrich. Sorry. That is actually, I keep muting him. I think his name is Peter. You just joined. If you could just leave it on mute and try not to touch it until you do have a question and everyone stop talking. Thank you.
Hi. So it's back to Ulrich. Robert, first of all, that was a great presentation. I'm very impressed. But secondly, I heard through the grapevine that you are speaking to Elon Musk, Mr. Musk, who's got SpaceX. And
I'm sorry, I missed that. Somebody unmuted their mic. Peter, please stop that.
Sorry, I heard through the grapevine that you were speaking to Mr. Musk and at SpaceX, and if that's true, if you made that kind of announcement, it would be really good for the stock. Do you think that'll happen in the future?
I can't discuss anything that may be proprietary in nature due to non-disclosure and non-circumvence. I have no comment on that. Thank you, though. I'd like to. There's a lot of people I'd like to discuss.
Well, we'd all love to do that.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I think a lot of people would be, this is one thing that's different for me because I've been in private business for all the years. And if there was not an NC in place, I communicated with everyone. I love to tell people what's going on. This is a totally different bailiwick within a public company. It's very tightly controlled between all the exchanges. And I, for one, when it comes time to say something, it will be out. No one will have any advance notice on it. There will be a blackout on the board, and everyone involved with the company will not be able to. I do news blackouts regularly so that people cannot discuss. No one is going to get an arm up or a leg up on anybody. When I do this is just the way I'm going to do it. And I feel good because I want a level playing field.
Well, Robert,
that's what all of my shareholders deserve.
Sure. Robert, may I say that you sound very impressive in your presentation and very professional. So I'm going to be a shareholder for a long time.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to call in. Hey, there's a lot of folks I know on here today, and I'm gratified to see that people are taking time out of their busy schedules to at least listen to what Robert has to say today. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert, this is John Sorensen with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Yes.
Our jurisdiction is Apache, Navajo, and Gila County, and we're very interested in what's going on. And if you need support, just give us a call.
Sounds good. I look forward. I think I met you on one public hearing one time that I had done. It was just a real quick meet and greet, but I look forward to meeting with you again. Thank you very much for your call in today. I appreciate it.
Robert, can I read you a question from Donna on the chat? Ooh, can you hear me there?
Yeah, yes. Don't move.
All right. Donna says the Biden administration just suspended federal oil and gas permitting. How does this affect your drilling plans?
What I saw of his order, you have to read that. Go back and read it for yourself because it doesn't say he suspended all federal oil and gas drilling, number one. You better go read the order. And it had to do with new areas. And there's some, I just read it about an hour ago. And out of 87 pages, I will fully admit, I do not fully understand that. So I haven't had time to digest it. I know it really was dealing with the previous administration's accelerated approval process. So basically, we're not on BLM property. We're on state and we're on ever increasing private property. So it really, per se, it's not going to affect me at all and our shareholders. We already have things outlined for where we're going. And again, we're not fracking. So who's got another great question? I know we got another important shareholder out there I need to hear from.
I have a question for you, Robert.
Yes.
It's Gianni Kovacevic. Well done. Just talk about the helium market in general for people. We saw that big spike in helium prices, and where's that at these days?
Well, it tends to, on any given month, and who the end user is, it can fluctuate a lot. I know of some manufacturing companies I've been in negotiations with, and they're seeing it fluctuate greatly. On an end user price, they haven't really seen much of a difference in a high quality product. It really hasn't budged a whole lot. You look at every, SpaceX Falcon 9, they had made a statement a while back, every SpaceX Falcon 9, I don't know this for sure because I haven't been down there for a launch, so I haven't spoken directly to the engineers. But they said there's $4 million worth of helium on every launch. On a Falcon 9 Heavy, there's 12 million. You look at Blue Origin's, Jeff Bezos' company, doing launches in New Mexico, that's ever increasing. In more specific to Arizona, which is where basically all the end users the majority of the end users that I would be working with initially are all located in Arizona or Nevada or the edge of California. There's so much more than what they would love to be able to increase their production activities, and they're really limited. They're getting good supplies now, but they can't expand. There's newer companies that are coming in for expansion with hard drives, liquid-filled hard drives, autonomous vehicles, and some newer type of robotic surgery for knees, prostate, all kinds of photon therapy. Whatever the medical field needs right now, they are being given priority. The pricing on that, from what I've been told, since I'm not seeing it, I have to say it's hearsay because I haven't seen anyone's invoices. It's just what they are telling me, and their budgets have had to increase to cover. They're paying anywhere from $1,400 to $3,874 per MCF for a high-grade product, depending on the quality of where they're going, what if it has to be liquefied or if it's in a gaseous state, how much move time is involved. And that's one of the other things that the movement, a lot of folks have not really focused on the actual movement of helium, because once you liquefy it, you basically have 40 to 45 days to get it to its end user. And in that time, depending on what the temperature fluctuations are, and if you don't have a vapor recovery system, you are going to lose upwards, it could be as high as 34%. So it's like just running a truck. One company that's located in Tucson, they were commenting how when they were getting helium from the Federal Reserve out of Texas, in the middle of summer, if that truck was loaded with liquid helium and the 14-hour trip between there and Tucson and 117-degree air temp and the actual temp on the road going down is closer to 121, 124. By the time it gets there, they paid for 18.7% more than what they got delivered because it's vented. So that's one of those things that's ever increasing, Yanni. And it's, as I say, there's so many other newer people that for manufacturing, real specialty chips, hardened chips, that type of stuff, and even other higher grade chips. There are problems with the process of using nitrogen and how it can react in any impurities that may be residing. They can't use it on copper because it forms a nitric acid in some cases if there's any kind of residual moisture. So there's a lot of things that a lot of these manufacturers, it's just opening up a bigger and bigger market for everybody. It's a growing market. Thank you, Yanni.
We have a
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew. Hi, Robert. How are you?
Good.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, you guys have got a great financial structure. You're well financed up. I've always looked at you as being like you're saying now, vertically integrated from ground to corporation. You got like Taiwan semiconductor building, or I think this year, 2021, they're starting to build a plant. So I'm not putting I'm just putting it out there. We know the lawsuit is a bit of a small term issue, and you addressed that. But what else could possibly pop up? Because you've laid out like milestones that are. I mean, this is very bullish. It looks very exciting. There's lots to look forward to. I'll just be the kind of the sourpuss and go, what else? What could possibly pop up? Because right now this is looking pretty optimistic. Like what would be a concern like moving forward to try to get to say to 350? Like what is it just a matter of hitting the milestones, getting this lawsuit out of the way, other than just the actual drill results? But assuming we're hitting what the business is doing, do you see any obstacles that's limiting or hindering in any way?
No, I think it comes down to more of logistics as far as we go forward. Thank you, Andrew, for that question. As far as like casings, specialty casings, if we're running stainless steel or nickel casings in some areas, if we run into something, and that's available. It might just not be available the day I want it. So it just puts the onus on our team to do more planning. And that's one thing, because we're not sitting in the middle of the oil patch at all or drilling. So everything that we do, every single item has to be trucked in, and you have to have it there. It can't be a just in time situation like they did for many years for vehicle manufacturing. Everything has to be there before you start. Otherwise you just don't start, because it becomes mission critical. And so it just, our team has been in this drilling business for so many years, and we've seen so many things. And that's one thing I love about having Dr. Jim Conable and Dr. Ed Colson in, and we're going to have a couple other fine gentlemen join us and another lady join us. And it's just the minds I get to tap, and the experience levels. That's really the biggest thing. As I say, dealing with state agencies on getting approval, it is what it is. To that end, though, I started 3 years ago working with legislators in 3 different states with a focus on Arizona. So that right there should tell you I'm looking at expansion. And how you work with legislators, and we've already have had attachments, addendums to certain bills that have been passed already, just things to help us going forward so we don't get into a headlogger with somebody. Hopefully, it's trying to work together and prevent things, be very ahead of the curve. As I say, there's a lot of things I worked on starting 3 years ago. Some people derided me on it's a waste of time, but in my heart, from my experience, I just knew these things would come up. And so it's kind of what do you do? When you want to be successful in business, you got to think ahead. And that's one thing I love about the team members we have now and the other folks we're adding. It's nice to work with a bunch of great minds that are not a bunch of yes people. They all think for themselves, and they come up with great ideas. And I appreciate that. And that's what I like being surrounded by. Next question.
Robert, we have another one from the chat. This is from Peter Trapp. He's wondering if you could be a little bit more specific on the scope and issues of the Flagstaff, Arizona lawsuit. Is it the town or a private group? And are they looking for money or permanent injunction?
I have no comment, period. I made all the comments because it's ongoing litigation. I am going to have no comment.
All right, we have another one from Eric. He was wondering what were the gas results in the hole number 3. I've not seen the helium concentrations, etc.
Because when we did gas samples, they were just when we were in the cementing process. So it's not an actual flow test out of any given zone. Even though when you're pumping cement down the casing, you know exactly how much volume you pump. You know what the volume of the annulus is the space between the casing and the sidewall. And so you can do these calculations. So we had it set up to take some samples. And it was more of a case when we were drilling, we were taking samples. We were looking to make sure we didn't have any H2S or CO2. And those are just kind of a sniffer sample that constantly went on. And we didn't see any elevated CO2s. The methane, it was very, very low. Methane is almost more like what you would normally see in a water zone. There's always, no matter where you drill a well, you will always have a little bit of gas, and a little natural gas. It may not even burn. It may be like, or if you can get it to burn, it won't even singe the hair on the back of your hand when it just flashes for a moment. So it's not really a percentage. It was more that confirmation of what was not there. And it was nice to see that what we did see was helium-3, which is what we thought we would be looking at. Someone else have a great question.
Robert?
Yes.
Carl Mansour from Montreal, Paradox. How are you doing?
Oh, good afternoon, Carl. Good to hear from you. I'm doing good. I'm glad you could join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very quick question. I want to know, are you still negative answer if a major comes and tries to buy you out for $2-3? We're still aiming the big dollars, as you were saying before?
I'm not selling for $2 or $3. Sorry. I spent 20 years putting this together because, Carl, you and I have visited a little bit, but for the majority of the folks on here, I started working on this in 1999. I can say that I'm willing to bet I am the only helium CEO out there that has set foot and physically done surface geology, reviewed seismic, and done everything else on the first 33 locations. I'm willing to bet nobody else has. And that you don't do all at one time. And I will freely admit that from my original studies of what I thought it required to have helium trapping mechanism, from 1999 till about 3 years ago, we'll just say it's a 180 off of what I felt was required for a trapping mechanism. And I really developed a proprietary model for that, what is required, both for traps and everything else that makes it happen. It's not necessarily only helium that's coming out of the primordial, out of the granite. Arizona is very unique, and there's since helium is generated by the breakdown of uranium-238 and thorium, there are some very unique sister biparticles that can be tracked via spectral analysis and other types of things. And I've had enough years to access a lot of information, and I have personally reviewed every well log that was drilled penetrated a water zone in northern Arizona. Personally reviewed it. I'm willing to bet nobody else has. Sometimes some of those well logs were not very informative. And there's a number of them that many years later, 10 years later, I went back after you learn other little tidbits. And then there's other well logs after drilling wells 1 and 2 that it triggers a thought, and you go back and you look at this data, and then having Dr. Cronable and Dr. Colson come in, oh man, they are a godsend. They really are. I am so blessed to have these two gentlemen on board with it, because they don't have to be told to do anything. They just see it, they just jump and run with it. And it's been a great blessing to have those two great gentlemen to come in and join us, because those type of folks really help. Next question.
Robert, this one is from Renee on the chat. Can you speak to expected build to production timing and if it has changed from previous forecasts?
The build, I'm sorry, repeat that. I just broke up a little bit, Jenna.
That's okay. If they were wondering if you could speak to expected build to production timing and if that has changed from previous forecasts.
Oh, the build to production timing. It maybe has slipped out a few weeks is all. And that's more of what I think I stated earlier, that we're looking from 16 to 23 weeks in that time frame. And again, what I've been told thus far by the manufacturers, once they have the final version, they've said that if everything works perfect, it'll be 14 weeks. Well, nothing works perfect. I guarantee you. I've been in this business for 30 plus years. Nothing works as planned. So am I giving myself room on that 23? Yeah, I am. That still puts us into this time frame of production for into the fourth quarter of this year. So I'm comfortable with that, based on what I've been told. Again, what these companies have told us so far is that none of them, of the manufacturing companies that I've spoken with thus far, none of them had a total shutdown due to COVID. They were shut down due to lack of work. And so they didn't bring everyone back in immediately. So, and that's one of those, if they've gotten somewhat busier, they may be slowing down, who knows, because they do manufacturing work for different types of pressure vessels and that type of stuff. But if they are hit with any kind of a slowdown, then it just helps. And we may be through a whole lot faster. And that would be fine.
There's a follow-up to that. They ask, if time permits, are there any modes of transportation being considered in relation to moving product to market, i.e. train, pipeline, and truck?
Pipelines, no. As far as moving from like the first two wells, or from wells 7, 8, and 9, or 3 over to the processing facility, those are not the same high pressure vehicles or liquefied. They're not running down the road with 6,000 PSI product in. And so, hello, whoever, please mute yourself, please. Thank you. And so that's the only real transportation of a crude product. And other than that, everyone we've spoken with, I think, as I said earlier, all the end users we're looking at already, they want to be able to, they understand the trucking aspect, and they don't want to put that in someone else's hand. They are willing to incur the cost of having their the high pressure or liquefied helium containers. They're willing to do that. And a lot of them have already had to do that when helium became such a commodity, and they found transportation difficult and losing, even for a short trip, they were losing quite a bit. And that's one of the things they look at from our location where we would be in Arizona, going to their places in Arizona. They're looking at losing less than, if it's liquefied, losing at less than 1/2 of up 1%. So they feel that taking a chance on that, or in some cases, they were losing 17% of the volume. It's paying for them to run their own trucks and trailers down the road. So that's great for us, removes our liability issues, and it helps get us up, and it decreases the amount of money that the capital we even have to put into that.
There's another question from the chat. What is the difference between helium 2, 3, and 4 in the applications?
Basically, we're dealing with helium 3 and 4. Helium 3 is missing an electron, and it's used more in high-tech and detection systems. For an example, it's used like in border security, aircraft security. There's a number of other things within Department of Defense issues where it's used. Have any other questions out there?
Can I ask a question, Robert?
Fedor.
Hello.
Hi. Has the gross intake level been designed for the processing facility, been determined yet?
No, I'm having it built to be within parameters, and because they're mobile units, once we have the first one built, it will be set basically so that as we add other wells online, they don't have to be the exact same gaseous composition. We actually are having it designed to where you can have input into the system by just coming out pre-designed holes on it, and you're in effect we'd be adding another like little 20-foot shipping container right alongside that would have the specialty equipment just in it just to deal with that, and any other tanks that we might happen to have require to deal with those small amounts. But basically, our original goal was to stay away from wild fluctuations on things, so that we can maximize what we're getting for our product. And as we add more, not only here but in other places, then we'll just be adding more mobile units to it in other areas that will be closest to cut down on our operational cost for trucking a crude. My goal is not to truck crude any further than a maximum of 30 miles. Everyone else has said in the past that they have used a 90-mile radius. My experience from oil and gas operations in the past, you keep it down to 30 miles, you're making money.
Robert? I'm sorry, I don't understand. I thought the processing facility was going to be in one location. Are you saying that it will be in multiple locations with mobile units?
Initially, no, it's all in one place. But as we expand out, it could be. Because we're not,
If you get
what
to
you're
your
talking
50 to
about
50
is the size. What you're talking about is the size of a 40-foot shipping container, two of them, one stacked on top. So it's very simple. It's not something huge. It doesn't require a lot of concrete to be placed on. It's simple to build.
I'm trying to get to the capacity of those units and the ultimate design capacity for gross intake if you get to your 50 to 55 well production goal longer term. I'd like to know what kind of gross input capacity could be handled at that point in time.
That would be dependent upon where we're at net. And to have 55 wells, as I previously have stated, probably before in some other press release or in some other discussion with folks, that's going to require probably 10. We would have 10 smaller processing facilities that would be closest to those. I'm not going to give you an exact, and here's why I'm not going to give you an exact number, because it's proprietary.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
We have another question from the chat from Peter. Is there uranium-238 or thorium nearby where you found it in Arizona?
There's a lot of uranium-238, thorium. There's a lot of radioactive stuff floating. There's in the groundwaters down deeper. There's U-308. There's a lot of different things, and those all, depending on what the depth they're at, can add significantly for a source of helium.
Are there any other questions? We are getting close to an hour. You can also email me questions as well if something comes to mind later on.
Robert, this is John Stark.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell me where the 8,000 acres that you recently leased, where that is more specifically?
That's located in the west side of Navajo County, south of Winslow, a few miles.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, is that a wrap?
I think we will call that a wrap. I want to say thank you again for everyone taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down with me for an hour and letting me try to get some information out to you. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your support as shareholders. We look forward to a great year. Thank you.